Just off the Texas coast sits a unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories. Port Aransas is a place where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the unhurried moments between adventures. One visit, and you'll see why generations of Texans have anchored their traditions to the island life. Start your new favorite family tradition in Port Aransas, Texas. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your visit to Austin's beach. Hey y'all, it's Nikki. It is summer, and for a lot of us, that means travel. Now, I don't know about you, but I still love a physical boarding pass. It's nostalgic. And even after the trip is done, I just can't seem to throw them away. Enter FrameBridge. They make it easy and affordable to custom frame just about anything. And yes, that includes my little paper boarding passes. So hold on to your personal piece of nostalgia with a FrameBridge frame. Visit framebridge.com or visit your local FrameBridge store in South Austin on South Lamar and in Central Austin on West 38th Street to start framing. Thousands of volunteers from all over are still helping in the aftermath of the catastrophic July 4th floods. But should we be relying on them to fill in for professional emergency responders? Today on CityCast Austin, I'm talking with two volunteers that are on the ground to give us an inside look into all of the ways Texans have stepped in to help. It's Wednesday, July 30th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here today with Dana De Hoyos, who lives in Comfort, Texas. She is the director of animal rescue and rehab of Comfort, and also volunteers at the Comfort Table and Food Pantry. Hi, Dana.
Good morning.
So we are talking about the volunteer response to flooding, and it's been a while since the July 4th floods. So some people might think that the news cameras have moved on, the number of missing people is down significantly, and the need for people to help is over. Is that true? Do we still need volunteers to help?
Well, of course, the nation has probably moved on to another disaster, but the ripple effects of the July 4th flood are happening daily. People are displaced. People are looking for apartments and new places to live. The need of resources in the community of Comfort, Fredericksburg, the Hill Country area, especially like Sandy Creek, I think that will continue for months to come. It's not immediately relieved just because it's not on the news anymore.
Yeah, I feel the same way. How are our animals doing?
Well, all of the local shelter animals that were in the shelters were shipped out to other shelters across the country so they could make room for the local displaced animals. The shelters are holding on to those animals in protective custody at their shelters so that if the family members are still surviving, they can be reunited with those animals so that they know exactly where they are. But all the local shelters, those animals were flown out a few days after the flood to make room for the flood displaced animals.
Wow. Someone that I talked to said, set your alarm for a month from now and then check back in and keep doing that and following up because people are going to need help for months and months and months. So take us back to July 4th. I want to hear how your organizations got activated to respond to the flooding.
So on July 4th, we kept getting alerts on the phone, stay home, danger of flooding. Now I'm on the highest elevation within 100 miles where I live. So I knew that I wasn't in immediate danger, but I started searching on the internet, seeing what was happening in my area. And immediately I saw about the Camp Mystic and Camp La Junta. And I knew for sure that I had a friend whose daughter was there. So I contacted him. I knew he was out of town. I said, what do you need? I'm here. And then a few hours later, he was still out of town. And the girls started being evacuated, 6 or 8 girls at a time via helicopter. And By 9 o'clock that night, he had arrived back and they were out. And then I started thinking about my community. Okay, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? What can I do in my little part of the world? What am I capable of doing? And I knew that the food bank was going to be hit hard because people are going to be displaced. So I know we don't have any dog or cat food. I contacted the director. I said, I'd like to do a drive so we have some stuff for the people that are displaced or the people coming into the food bank. And so I have a pretty large social media following. So I was put in contact with this amazing woman named Amy Sins. She runs Fill the Needs, and it's a nonprofit that goes into disaster areas virtually wherever in the country she is. She connects with people in the area and she connects resources. I mean, I'd worked with Katrina with the Red Cross 20 years ago, volunteering in my community when I lived in San Antonio when Katrina came through. Mm-hmm. But I'd never been in the heart of a disaster situation where everything was up in the air. No one knew what was happening.
Right.
And so Amy kind of talked me through, okay, well, why don't you do an Amazon wish list? And she kept sending contacts to me of things, resources that she had that I was able to connect to people in my community that needed it, like cadaver dogs, people that had therapy animals for trauma. I have a full-time job as a photographer, but I was able to put everything on hold to just do this every day. Connecting people was a full-time job of, okay, who needs this? Where does this go?
Oh, yeah.
It was like all day, every day. And then the Amazon wish list for the pantry started coming in. And the first day on the 6th, I got 3,000 packages delivered to my front door.
Oh, my God. Oh.
And so I immediately put a call out to my volunteers, my friends. I need help.
Yeah.
Can someone come help me? Every day it got smaller. Like first day we had 3 Amazon trucks show up, 3 full Amazon trucks of supplies. Wow. The next day we had 2 full Amazon trucks. The response was overwhelming of people wanting to help and people calling me saying, what do you need? There were approximately 5,000 people across the country that set in monetary donations to the food bank, just in particular for my fundraiser, and $65,000 worth of food and medical supplies and cleaning supplies for the shelters in my community. It originally started for the pantry, but now I've been able to supply 12 other nonprofits, animal rescues, and sanctuaries with enough food for as long as they want. People really want to help animals. And pet food and supplies for sanctuaries and shelters are a huge expense. And the individuals from the organizations, the shelters, and nonprofits coming to get food for their individual organizations are so grateful.
I'm curious. We don't often talk about the people sitting at a desk with one phone in one hand, the computer in the other, bringing people together, being like, oh, see a need, fill a need. That's a facilitating administrative part that I don't think you hear a lot about, honestly, because that's every day. It's a full-time job that you've now taken on to try to get people what they need on the back end. And so was it just literally you and volunteers knocking it out?
From my perspective, I was going to so many places to deliver supplies and work with other nonprofits in the community. Where were national organizations and governmental agencies? Where were they? And because all I saw was people on the ground in the communities helping, was people that had nonprofits and like the Chamber of Commerce and Comfort. They're the ones that set up the aid station in the town of Comfort. We're unincorporated. They did this on their own. They set up a huge aid station, and it was just amazing to see like people that had no idea what they were doing figure out how to help and what to do. And I especially found that in Sandy Creek because 8 days after the flood here, I heard about the Sandy Creek area out of Leander, and I joined all of their Facebook forums to find out what the needs were. And so I looked at the Leander sites, and it looked like the only people doing stuff were the people in the community. I didn't see any other national organizations there. But when I got there, I did see an aid station at a church that had military workers there, but they were there. They weren't at the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I don't understand what was going on because this community was stranded for 8 days and they were walking supplies over on their back. And I was bringing animal food and supplies to this neighborhood. That community was not as well off as the Hunt area was. A lot of them had backyard poultry. None of them were able to get feed for like 6 days. So I brought 3 truckloads. It was about $2,000 worth of chicken feed to the neighborhood. It seemed like it was the first time it had arrived. There were aid stations which were run at the bridge that had residents in the aid stations running them. So who was in charge?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Where's the person with the clipboard saying, okay, this resource is here? I just didn't understand what was going on. It was like it was chaos. And the debris in the field, like 6 or 7 days later, the debris was 3 stories high on both sides of me. And they found bodies there 2 days later. Jesus. So what was going on in that neighborhood? Why wasn't it being helped? And I just don't understand.
So I want to make sure we get this timeline right. Sandy Creek is in northwest Travis County, and it started flooding early in the morning of July 5th. Devastation was terrible. Roads washed out, people killed, people missing. Dana, you're saying you got there, it had been 8 days later, correct?
I was there on Saturday.
Okay.
The temporary bridge was completed the next day, and they found some deceased people in the wreckage a day after that and started clearing a day after that. So yeah, at least 6 days after the flood hit them, they were still stranded in the neighborhood.
Wow. According to Travis County Judge Andy Brown's office, they said there were 500 plus first responder personnel involved from Travis County, Texas Military Department, Texas Task Force, Alabama, Florida, Minnesota, Arizona. They said they had 14 cadaver dogs, 200 rescues from first responders in the first 48 hours. So 10 people in northwest Travis County were killed by the flooding, and it spanned 18 miles, and 4 people are still missing. What I'm hearing from you is like, where were these 500 first responders? Because you're there and you don't see them, except for a couple of military people at the church. Is that right?
Well, not a couple military people. There were a lot of military people, but I didn't see any people at the neighborhood. They were at the church. And what really struck me was, okay, so these governmental agencies aren't showing up, but the people were showing up. The people in the neighborhood, not in Sandy Creek, but the areas around Sandy Creek. There was a little boy who was a resident of Sandy Creek. I have a picture of him in one of the videos on my Facebook. He was taking feed bags of chicken food in his wagon and going to house and saying, do you need chicken food? He was there from the moment I got there to the moment I left. He helped me with every single load. He was so happy and willing to help. And he was one of the residents of the neighborhood.
Wow. Who is in charge? Because in my head, it should be like government officials get there and say, this is what we're doing. If you're a volunteer for the community, you go here. This person goes here. This does that. And the fact that it doesn't seem like that was happening is really scary, I think, to me personally.
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw that be true 20 years ago with Katrina when the Red Cross came to San Antonio and all the displaced people came to San Antonio. It was very organized. You knew exactly what was going on. I did not see that in this situation. And by the people's rants on Facebook about, I can't find these people that are missing and we're looking for them. And yet this person just showed up and found their deceased relative, like a non-governmental person finding human remains.
Wow.
It just makes my heart hurt.
Well, because we're not equipped to handle that kind of trauma. It sounds to me like, did you feel like the people were taking care of what needed to happen just kind of on their own? Like the community just stepped up and figured it out? Was that your experience?
So in the past 2 weeks, anything that I needed or requested from anyone in the community, it showed up almost immediately. Wow. Like, I need help with loading. I need help with transport. And I saw that online as well. And You think social media is like a terrible thing, but Facebook is the only thing that got me what I needed and connected me to who I needed.
Well, there it is. Yeah. What do you think was missing from the official response to the flooding, both in Kerr County and in Northwest Travis County?
Well, unfortunately, and I'm sure it's just because of my narrow perspective on where I was and who I spoke to, but I didn't see a national, like a governmental response. I saw people in the community, just like you and I, who are in the area finding out what needs to be done. That's all I saw.
So just in totality, government response was missing. That's I mean, from your view.
So my husband and his very good friend, he had a home in Hunt, and the home was completely flooded out. So my husband's been going there for a few days and helping him clear it out and being there for relief workers to come in. Well, the relief workers that are coming in are churches and groups doing that. Like, they're the ones coming in, helping with the homes. Like, I guess the reality is we're relying on each other.
Yeah.
Like, government's not going to show up. The state, like, if a disaster happens, you better have a network of community like-minded people who will show up for you. And that is what happened in this area. There was a cadaver dog group. They were from North Carolina. And he said that he's done disaster relief in lots of other areas. And I'm hoping he wasn't just saying this to be nice. He said, I have never seen such an amazing community of people wanting to help each other, and everyone wanting to help us and making sure we're okay and bringing us food and bringing us supplies. It's like we have to turn people away. The response has been so overwhelming to our being here, unlike any other place I've ever been. I'm like, really? Texas is that different?
I mean, it does not surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I love that. A friend of mine said once, like, we have to save ourselves. The government is not going to save us. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter. We are going to show up. If someone is in need, we are going to show up. That's why I love this state. Oh, if the government doesn't have it, that's okay. Our community, the community has it, and the community will figure it out. So seeing what you've seen, like, how would you describe the need in these areas going forward?
Well, I know people's desire to help is probably waning. People are kind of tapped out in terms of giving, but there are still needs and comfort going on, and in Hunt and Centerpoint. Just 3 days ago, I took in a displaced potbelly pig whose owners had to move into an apartment because they couldn't take any farm animals with them. So I took their potbelly pig. I know nothing about potbelly pigs. They're foreign to me. I've never done pigs before. So immediately I had to find a sanctuary that specialized in pigs. So I was able to do that. I drove her up to 6 hours on Saturday up to Fort Worth area, dropped her off at a sanctuary because she was in bad shape. She's traumatized. She was depressed. Yeah. They took her in. They're not a well-funded sanctuary. It's Hogs and Kisses near Fort Worth. They only take in swine. Oh my God,
that's such a good name. That's such a good name, Dana. Oh my God.
And I'm sure people are thinking like, oh, a pig, you know, it's not a dog or a cat. It's not a human. But like, she is affected by the flood, and I was trying to raise some funds for her. And I think people are tapped out. They gave so much the first 2 weeks, and now they're just like, let's give this a rest. I think I had a tiny mini nervous breakdown yesterday. Like, I cried for the first time.
Yeah.
It was my birthday, and I went and I got a manicure and a pedicure, and my husband took me out to lunch, and then I just started crying. And I think it was like the first time in 2 weeks that I cried. And I think I was just mentally exhausted. I have reached a limit as well. Like, I'm tired and I think I need to take a little break.
I've learned a term during all this called compassion fatigue, and it is a real thing. And it's just like, we can only handle so much of just holding it together so that we can have compassion for others and showing up until we just need a second. We can't show up for others if we don't show up for ourselves. Like that's it. Dana, thank you so much. Thanks for talking to me and taking the time, and thanks for everything that you've been doing.
Well, I'm not a rescue worker. I'm not like someone in charge. I just tried to do as good as I can where I was placed. So.
And you did. It sounds to me like you kicked some ass, which I'm into.
Thanks, Nikki.
So the first half of this interview, we heard from a woman who lives in Comfort and has been organizing efforts to help animals in the area. Now I'm here with Reverend Dwight Bailey to hear about the Austin Disaster Relief Network's experience. And so full disclosure, during our recent membership drive, we made a donation to Austin Disaster Relief Network for our members' first month fees. Now, it's been a while since the July 4th floods. Is there still need for people to help? Do we still need volunteers to help with the recovery in Kerr County and the Austin area?
I literally am here at a local church here in Kerr, and I've just was meeting with a group of faith-based leaders and sharing with them how we have mobilized hundreds of volunteers to come and to help with various efforts, with search and rescue, with finding people's personal belongings, with donation management. And the thing that's standing out in my mind is when I got to meet with a young man who had just found out that they had found his brother's body. Mm. And when you think about that kind of devastation that this community is experiencing, yes, it's the disaster, but it's the emotional, it's the spiritual, it's the trauma.
Yeah.
And yes, there's need for help. Absolutely.
We keep reiterating this. I think people forget this will be going on for months. So take us back to July 4th. How did y'all get activated to respond to the flooding?
So the first thing that we do is we pray. We mobilize teams to just begin to pray, to say, what is it that we are needing to do in this particular disaster, if anything at all? And that's really where we start, because one of the things that I have learned in disaster relief is that you can actually get involved in ways that contribute to the disaster if you aren't really clear of what the needs are, when they're needed, and how to step in and help. So we have what we call our monitoring phase, and we monitor to try to determine how significant is the disaster, is the need, and clearly this one was significant, unlike anything I've experienced, just given the loss of life, the sudden realities of all that has taken place. And so we immediately knew that there was something we were going to need to be poised for. So we began to then mobilize, and typically what we're listening for is someone saying, hey, here's a need. And we do physical, emotional, and spiritual support. And so we try to step in after the emergency responders who go in and do an amazing job. And then we step in with some of the short-term support, that immediate support when families are just beginning to want to talk about and process what trauma they are experiencing. And then, of course, we know we can't do it all long term. So our heart, we're connected. We're a network of churches, a couple hundred churches. And so we try to connect folks then to the churches where they get the long-term support and community that they need to walk through what they're facing.
So we're talking about not just food, blankets, resources, clothing, all of that stuff, but also emotional, spiritual, mental support.
Absolutely.
How many volunteers have you organized since July 4th? And do you know about how many people or families y'all have helped?
Oh, yeah, probably hundreds easily that we've helped. Easily hundreds.
Oh, man.
And there are I literally just told me the number today because I thought it was thousands, but they said it's over 2,000 volunteers that have registered with us and gone out and served. Yeah. Now, I want to say this because there are folks who have served with us the first time in this disaster. And you know what? Not everybody is prepared to offer the emotional, spiritual support. Right. And that's okay. Yeah. We've got folks that want to go out and they want to go out and clean up tree debris. They want to serve meals. And that is perfectly, we need all of that, right? There's something for everybody to do. And then there's others who we provide training and equipping that help folks through what we call critical incident stress management. It's a program we use. And it allows us to sit and listen to folks and just ask a series of questions that some are just very practical. Tell me if you're eating, tell me if you're sleeping, tell me, those kinds of things. And then we try to listen to what must have been going through your mind. What were you feeling at that time? And just as you give folks an opportunity to express, and what we find, Nikki, is that oftentimes the disaster, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Most folks they're pulling up things that were already pain points in their life. And this disaster just
it's the
literally
point.
Took them over the tipping point.
That's a really interesting and specific thing to remind people to focus their care back on themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the questions that we ask in our intakes when we meet with folks is we ask the question, is there anything good that you could see coming out of this? And Nikki, I'm telling you, just to hear somebody say something like, I'm just overwhelmed that people who don't know me would care for me the way they care for me.
Yeah.
Some of them are just like, I'm just so grateful that I'm alive, that my life was spared in this. It's just amazing. And those are the moments of hope that people realize that I'm going to make it through today. And I need that reminder today.
You bring up a really good point. And so I'm curious about you're providing this support, this emotional, this mental, spiritual support for the people affected. And now I'm starting to think about the volunteers. And so it's a little heartbreaking for me to think that regular, everyday people that maybe don't have the training are potentially finding deceased people. And so I'm curious, if you guys were also having to kind of triage any volunteers that just stumbled upon something that, even if they don't stumble upon someone that's deceased, seeing that kind of devastation, that has to be also traumatic. So do you guys have the bandwidth to help with volunteers and how they're faring?
That is a great question. I'm really glad that you asked. We try to be very intentional about the kinds of volunteer opportunities that we offer. And so folks that came here to Kerr, they were specifically involved in finding lost items and things like that. So we did not send folks out on rescues that were looking for, bodies or anything like that. There were a couple of teams that, insisted they wanted to do those things very specifically, but we were very intentional about the kinds of opportunities that we offer because that is a significant thing and not everybody is prepared. We debrief with our team so that they're able to process same thing. How are you feeling? Because again, what we've learned over the years is sometimes even when you're on the other side of that table with a survivor, they might say something that triggers something for you.
Yeah.
And so then we have ways to debrief with our volunteers to make sure that they're staying emotionally and spiritually healthy as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm curious, have you been down to Sandy Creek?
Yes, I have.
Curious about when you got there and what were your first impressions about what was happening at Sandy Creek?
Yeah. So Sandy Creek was hit very hard in terms of in the various counties where we are. A good portion of our team, again, we had to kind of divide and spread out because, again, there were so many areas impacted. So our team was on the ground quickly. And a lot of the work that needed to be done was the heavy equipment, the heavy machinery, because literally areas just needed to be cleared. That's a little frustrating because there's so many folks that are eager. They want to get in and they want to serve. And safety is critically important to us. So there's a little bit of a delay and, trying to encourage folks to please don't self-deploy because some areas just aren't safe.
They're not ready.
Self-deploy.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
once that kind of got taken care of, then, I mean, there's a complete operation over there with, again, various ministry teams are there on the ground. They're doing all kinds of teams are going out and doing cleanup. We ran a volunteer VRC, a volunteer reception center, and that's where volunteers would go, and they'd register online, then they'd show up there, and then we'd shuttle them over to Sandy Creek, where Round Mountain Baptist Church is kind of the main site over there. And so we get folks dispersed to the various areas, and then they get to go out to the various teams and serve. And we've done that in a couple of shifts every single day.
And so I'm curious if you think there was anything missing from the official response to the flooding, both in Kerr County and in Northwest Travis County. Do you think that anyone official, when I say official, I mean government, whoever, just kind of dropped the ball or could have handled better?
I wouldn't even know where to begin. I'm sure there's things that, we could have tightened up, or we could, I think that's because no disaster is alike. When the disaster hits, you do your best to have good communication, good logistics, and you respond to the need as clearly as they're defined. You respond to the need. And then when it's all over, absolutely, you need to go back and you need to say, what could we have done differently? What can we do better next time? And that's the way you do it.
Did you feel supported by the officials?
We absolutely did. Again,
Nice.
we
Nice.
feel like everything we do as the Austin Disaster Relief Network, it's relational. It's relational. It's got to be relational. And we can't do it all. Government can't do it all. Nobody can do it all. It's together that we can do more. And we take that really seriously.
How would you describe what our community is going to need from us from now on?
I really mean this. Prayer. We got to pray that, because some of this we're not going to know until we walk through it. We need prayer. I think we need patience with one another, because there are folks that are hurt.
Yeah.
There are folks that are angry. There's myriad emotions that go with this kind of thing. And so I think just learning to be patient with one another, I think is going to be very important. But practically speaking, it's costly, Nikki. It's costly. Can you imagine if you had no homeowners insurance, or you were already financially struggling, or here you get slapped with a $50,000 bill for something that you have to rebuild. Who's prepared for that?
Who's got that?
And so it's going to be costly. And so people are going to have immediate needs they need temporary housing, they need food, they need clothes, they need reason immediately. And then you start getting into the long term. What is it going to take to rebuild the home that is now destroyed?
Anytime something like this happens, I'm like, you know what I know they're going to need immediately? Money. I can volunteer later, but right now, the immediate thing that I can do is give what I have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I grew up in the church, and so I'm super aware of how fellowship works and how you, as a church community, you show up, you go where you are called. But I'm so curious about when you are an organization that is faith-based and you come into this kind of, disaster response, and you come across people maybe that are not faith-based and they don't want to pray with you. They don't want you to pray for them. I'm so curious how you handle that.
I'm so glad you asked, and you respect the person that's in front of you. And if I can tell you, I don't know if I could honestly tell you a time that I've asked someone, would it be okay if I prayed for you in the middle of a crisis? And they said no. I cannot personally tell you that. However, if someone were to say no, then we would not pray with them. We would not pray with them. That would be disrespectful to where they are. I would pray for them. In my heart, this is an individual who's gone through a crisis and going through a crisis, and our heart is to bring hope in the middle of that crisis. I was involved in an intake in Travis County, and we met with a man. He started talking about all these things he had lost, okay? But he talked about just being grateful for being alive. He talked about just wanting, Nikki, he said, I just want a steak.
I love
want a
it.
steak.
I just want a steak.
And you know what? And literally,
let's get this man a steak.
10, 15 minutes of that conversation, when we gave him the resource that we assessed he needed, I said, Jim, I hope that you go get yourself a couple of steaks. And I tell you, I mean, something as personal as that for him, that meant something to him. And again, maybe he's going to process other things. I'm sure he will down the line. But at that moment, just to be across the table with people who were listening, caring.
That's all you need sometimes. Absolutely. You just need somebody to tell you it's okay. Is there anything else that you want listeners to hear or know?
We are very grateful for all of the folks who have supported ADRN as we support other people. And that is our heart's desire. Again, we're a network of churches. And, it is in moments like this that I truly believe like it's our finest hour. It's our finest hour, because if we don't show up now, when do we show up? I literally woke up just wrestling with my own angst about all that is going on. I remember one of our volunteers, they had mentioned, we had gone out and searched some areas for some things, and it seemed like it was an area that had already been searched. And I looked at that person and I said, I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids, and if one of my kids would have been out there, I'd love you to search twice, maybe even 3 times. Do you know what I'm saying? You start to empathize with folks. And so I would encourage folks to do just that. Be compassionate, be empathetic. And everyone's going to go through things like this very, very differently. And so we've got to give room and space for them to go through it how they need to go through it. Sometimes you just have to live in this moment. Like I can't be concerned about tomorrow. So can you imagine what these folks who have gone through this trauma, how can they think about tomorrow?
Right.
So let's just be present for today, right? Number 2 is I realize that, God has been faithful to me, and He's going to bring us through. This isn't the first or the last traumatic experience that I've gone through, you're going through. I'll give you a little example. I walked into a gas station here in Kerr, and I met a gal, and I said, hey, how's it going? And she said, it's hard. I said, gosh, I can't even imagine. And I said, it seems really tough for everyone in this community. And she said, this is the first disaster that I've been through that I've not lost everything. She talked about going through Katrina. She lost everything. She named a couple other disasters, and she said, this is the first time. And she said, I'm not sure sometimes if it's better to be on this side or the other side. I mean, see what triggers?
Yeah.
Right?
Survivor's guilt. Yeah.
And I said to her, I think it's probably better to be on this side. And I said, I dare bet that God's going to use you and people like you in this community to remind folks they're going to be okay. Because here you are, right? You've been through this several times, and here you are. And sometimes, you just need to be able to say, like, we're going to be okay, right? And thirdly is we're together. And when communities come together, families come together, however it is, right? You're not alone. And one of my mentors used to always say, as long as we don't give up all on the same day, we're going to be all right, right?
As long as we spread it out, we'll be all right.
Spread it out.
Yes.
So,
oh my gosh. Dwight, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for talking with me about this and going through this.
Well, you are a delight. Thank you so much. I appreciate your conversational style, and just let me share my heart. We're very grateful.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Before we go, I have a little midweek mood boost for you. Austin's beloved music shop, Waterloo Records, has announced the grand opening date of their new spot. So back in January, Waterloo Records announced that ownership would change, and with that would come a move. It's now in the hands of Gold Rush Vinyl founder Karen Keller and investor Trey Watson. The new location is at 1105 North Lamar Boulevard, which is only 5 blocks away from where they were for 35 years at 600 North Lamar. There'll be 50% more space and a large stage for in-store performances. Plus, all the current staff will be retained in the transition. The grand opening celebration will be August 30th and will feature music, commemorative gifts, and giveaways throughout the day. Bottom line, Waterloo Records is still with us and will continue under new ownership. That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Dana's organization and Austin Disaster Relief Network in our show notes. Don't forget, y'all, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Austin member at membership.citycast.fm. So if you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.